If you want to be the man she gives herself to, today, not next week, not after 10 dates, it starts with one thing: emotional safety. Not manipulation, not pretending to care, not over-the-top charm, real safety. And the truth most men overlook is that emotional safety doesn't take months to build. It can be established in minutes, if you know how to create it. Emotional safety is about the space you create, not the lines you say. It's about how a woman feels in your presence. Does she feel judged, measured, rushed, or does she feel relaxed, seen, and fully accepted as she is? That feeling determines everything. Women don't open up when they're convinced. They open up when they feel safe enough to do so. And that safety begins with your energy, not your words. Here's what most men get wrong. They focus on trying to impress, trying to be liked, trying to win her over. That kind of energy is needy, and women sense it. It triggers their defenses. It makes them feel like they have to protect themselves, even when nothing harmful is happening. But a man who's built different, who's grounded, calm, and non-reactive, sends a different message. His presence says, "You don't need to perform for me. I'm not here to take anything. I'm here to understand you." That's when her walls begin to lower. When you look her in the eyes without rushing to fill the silence. When you listen to her without interrupting or steering the conversation back to yourself. When you mirror her pace instead of pushing your own agenda. That's when she begins to trust you. Not because you've convinced her, but because your presence is telling her what words never could. I see you, and you're safe here. Women live in a world that constantly sexualizes them while invalidating their emotions. So when a man comes along who's not only comfortable with desire, but also grounded enough to respect her feelings, that man stands out. She doesn't feel like a target around him. She feels like a human being. And that kind of energy, that's what turns attraction into surrender. Because here's the paradox. The fastest way to intimacy is to slow down. When a woman feels that you're not rushing, not trying to get somewhere, but are fully present in the now, she begins to relax. And when she relaxes, her desire rises naturally, not because you forced it, but because you allowed it. You gave her the psychological space to feel safe, and in that space, attraction can thrive. This is the part most men never master. They think she needs convincing. She doesn't. She needs permission. Permission to be herself, to feel what she feels, and to explore her desire without shame or pressure. Give her that, and she won't just give you her attention. She may give you her body sooner than you expected. Because at the end of the day, if a woman doesn't feel emotionally safe with you, she'll protect herself from you. But if she does, you'll unlock parts of her most men never even get close to. That's not game, that's presence, and that's what makes you truly unforgettable. One of the biggest misunderstandings men have about attraction is that women want you to hide your sexual intent until the right time. But the truth is, women don't fear your desire. They fear the weight you put behind it. When a woman feels like your desire is desperate, heavy, or manipulative, her guard goes up. But when a man owns his attraction with ease, clarity, and no pressure, it becomes magnetic. Masculine intent, when delivered the right way, doesn't push, it pulls. It doesn't chase, it invites. A man who's built different doesn't apologize for wanting her. He makes it clear, not with vulgarity or arrogance, but with grounded, unshakable presence. His tone, his eye contact, his energy, all say, yes, I'm attracted to you. Yes, I'd love to explore this. But whether it happens or not doesn't change who I am. That's powerful, that's rare, and that's exactly what puts a woman at ease. Because here's what most men don't understand. When you suppress your sexual intent entirely, you come off passive, indecisive, and hard to read. You become safe, yes, but not exciting. On the other hand, if your intent is too aggressive, she feels objectified and her defenses kick in. The sweet spot is clear but relaxed. When you communicate desire without pressure, you create a space where she can explore her own attraction without feeling obligated to give you something in return. Women are highly intuitive. They know when your interest is genuine, and they know when it's transactional. That's why when your intent is clean, when it's honest, rooted in respect, and not driven by an outcome, she doesn't resist it. She leans into it. Because now it doesn't feel like she's being pursued. It feels like she's being seen. Built different, men understand the psychology of tension. They know how to flirt without begging, how to hold eye contact without making it a stare down, how to drop subtle compliments that carry weight without crossing the line. They might say something like, "You're dangerously attractive," and "I'm doing my best to behave," with a smile. Not as a tactic, but because it's true. That kind of energy makes her pulse quicken, not because she's being pressured, but because she's being desired in a way that's conscious, measured, and emotionally safe. And when a woman feels that, when she feels your intent but not your neediness, that's when things move quickly. Because now she has room to express her own desire. She doesn't feel like she's reacting to your pressure. She's choosing to match your energy. And when a woman feels like the choice is fully hers, she often chooses sooner than you expect. To understand this, your intent isn't the problem, it's how you carry it. If you own it with calm, grounded confidence, and you release any need to control the outcome, you become deeply attractive. Because at the end of the day, a woman isn't turned on by your need to have her, she's turned on by your ability to want her without losing yourself. That's not game. That's masculine integrity. And that's what makes you built different. Physical escalation is where most men focus, but emotional escalation is where the real seduction happens. You can touch a woman's body all you want, but if you haven't stirred something deeper inside her, she won't feel compelled to open up to you. She may flirt, she may smile, she may even play along, but nothing real happens until she feels an emotional shift. And that shift, it's what separates a forgettable encounter from an unforgettable experience. The man who's built different knows this. He doesn't rush to make a move. He builds emotional tension with intention. He understands that arousal begins in the mind, not the body. And because of that, he creates connection that feels organic, not forced. He doesn't just go from 0 to 60. He lets the conversation breathe. He lets the moment unfold. Because he's not just escalating physically, he's aligning emotionally. You have to understand, a woman's desire is layered. It doesn't usually show up in the first 5 minutes. But when you can make her feel understood, seen, and emotionally energized, you awaken something powerful in her. You create internal momentum, the kind that makes her want to be closer to you, not because you pushed, but because you unlocked something she didn't even realize she wanted. And it's not about being deep or poetic, it's about being present. Ask the questions other men are too distracted to ask. Listen not just to her words, but to her energy. Tease her playfully, challenge her ideas, share something real about yourself. Make the emotional landscape dynamic, light, and fun, then deep and intimate, then back to playful. This emotional contrast is where attraction breathes. It keeps her on the edge, wondering what's coming next. That anticipation is what fuels desire. When you build emotional tension correctly, she starts to feel that pull, not just to talk more, but to feel more. Her body starts to follow her heart. Her barriers drop without her even noticing. And here's the truth most men miss. When a woman feels emotionally connected, physical touch no longer feels invasive. It feels natural, like an extension of what's already happening inside her. This is why some men can kiss a woman 10 minutes after meeting her, while others can spend hours together and never break the surface. It's not about time, it's about tension. When emotional energy is rising, physical intimacy feels like the obvious next step. But when that emotional foundation is missing, even a casual touch can feel off, too soon, or out of place. The man who can read this emotional rhythm and respond to it, he doesn't need tricks. He doesn't need lines. He's in sync with her. And that synchronicity is what creates chemistry. Not just the kind that's hot in the moment, but the kind she remembers, the kind she wants to return to. So if you're chasing physical escalation without emotional alignment, you'll always feel like you're forcing it. But if you master the art of emotional escalation, the rest will happen naturally. Not because you pushed, but because she felt something. At the end of the day, the key isn't touching her faster, it's reaching her deeper. And when you do that, she won't need convincing, she'll choose you. That's the difference. That's what makes you built different. Every woman has boundaries, not just physical ones, but psychological ones. Rules she's created to protect herself. Some of those rules are based on personal values, others are based on fear, past experiences, or social conditioning. And yet almost every woman also has this hidden part of her that wants to break those rules for the right man in the right moment. Not because he pressured her, but because he created a space so safe, so thrilling, so emotionally alive, that she wanted to surrender to it. That's not manipulation, that's inspiration. And that's a level most men never reach. You see, it's not about convincing her to let something happen. It's about making her feel something she doesn't usually get to feel. When she's around a man who activates her intellect, triggers her curiosity, flirts with her mind, respects her energy, and still holds firm in his desire, something shifts inside her. She starts to question the very rules she walked in with. Not because she's abandoning her standards, but because she's realizing this man is different. This moment is rare. I want to break my own pattern for him. That's powerful. Because when a woman breaks her own rules for you, that experience becomes unforgettable. She doesn't feel like she was talked into anything. She feels like she chose it. She feels like she took a risk for herself with you. And more importantly, she feels safe doing it because your energy never made her feel boxed in. That's what most men miss. They try to get her to say yes by pushing against the walls. But a man who's built different knows if you create the right emotional environment, she'll open the door herself. This is where identity comes into play. Women are drawn to men who make them feel like more than what they show the world. When you tap into the version of herself she doesn't usually express, the playful version, the wild version, the deeply feminine version, she'll start to feel free. And once she feels free, she'll start to trust her instincts. That's when desire overrides logic. That's when connection overrides conditioning. And that's when she breaks the rules, not because she lost control, but because she finally let go. You don't need to be aggressive. You don't need to convince. You need to be aligned. When your energy says, I want you, but I don't need you to do anything you're not ready for, and when your actions consistently reflect emotional intelligence, strength, and calm masculinity, she begins to soften. Because now she's not reacting to pressure, she's responding to presence. And that's where intimacy begins. Not with words, not with touch, but with permission. Her permission to step outside her own boundaries and into an experience that feels too good, too safe, and too alive to resist. Because at the end of the day, any man can ask her to break the rules. But the man who makes her want to, without ever asking, that's the one she'll remember. That's the one who's built different. If you want to touch her body, you must first touch her mind. That's not just a metaphor, it's a psychological reality. For most women, arousal doesn't start with skin. It starts with stimulation that's intellectual, emotional, and energetic. And if you can't reach her there, it doesn't matter how smooth your touch is or how confident your moves are, she won't fully let go. But the man who knows how to flirt with her thoughts, challenge her perspective, and dance with her imagination, that man doesn't have to convince her. She comes closer by instinct. See, the average guy leads with compliments. He overuses praise, trying to win her attention with shallow approval, but women don't respond deeply to words they've heard 1,000 times. What they remember is the man who sees them differently, the man who can spark curiosity, who listens closely but also knows when to challenge, who's not afraid to make her think. That kind of man becomes a mental stimulant, something rare in a world obsessed with surface-level seduction. This is why built different men don't just entertain, they engage. They don't just agree to be liked, they disrupt with care. They drop unexpected observations, they tease without mocking, they explore her worldview while subtly revealing their own. The result? A conversation that feels like chemistry, a moment that doesn't just touch her ears, it touches her identity. Because when a woman feels mentally awakened, her guard drops in the most natural way. She becomes more expressive, more curious, more alive. Her sensuality starts to surface, not because you triggered it, but because you gave it permission to rise. Her laughter, her lingering eye contact, the way she leans in just a little closer, that's not coincidence. That's the response to feeling seen, stimulated, and safe. But don't misunderstand. This doesn't mean you become overly serious or overly intellectual. It means you show up consciously. You don't talk just to fill silence. You speak to create resonance. You let the words you choose and the silences you allow carry meaning. That's what she feels. That's what stays with her long after the interaction ends. What's ironic is that when you get this part right, when you touch her mind first, her body responds in ways that feel effortless. because now she's not defending herself. She's expressing herself. She's not analyzing your next move. She's enjoying the moment. That shift is everything. So many men rush to physical escalation, thinking that's the shortcut. But the real shortcut, it's emotional and intellectual intimacy. And it's usually faster, because when a woman feels you've already met her on a level that most never even try to reach, her body follows naturally. Not out of obligation, but out of a desire to go deeper with the man who finally understands how to lead her, not just the situation. At the end of the day, physical intimacy is easy. Mental intimacy, that's what unlocks the doors no one else gets to walk through. That's what makes you unforgettable. That's what makes you built different. If there's one thing that women crave, but rarely receive, it's escape. Not from their lives, but from the mental noise, the emotional fatigue, the constant demand to perform, to be strong, to keep it all together. Most of the time, they're not just looking for a man. They're looking for a moment that feels different from the rest. A moment that feels like exhale. And the man who can create that, he doesn't have to ask for anything, because he becomes the thing she wants to say yes to. That's the final layer of why a woman will give herself to a man the same day she meets him. Not because he tricked her or pressured her, but because the experience of being with him felt like a break from reality, a kind of emotional vacation. When you carry a vibe that's calm, grounded, unbothered by the chaos of the world, she naturally wants to be close to it, because it feels good. It feels rare. It feels safe and exciting all at once. But most men aren't even thinking about this. They're focused on performance, tactics, timing, when they should be focused on presence. Because presence creates atmosphere. It's not about what you say or do. It's about what she feels when she's around you. Does she feel seen but not judged? Does she feel desired but not controlled? Does she feel like she can breathe a little deeper around you? If the answer is yes, then you're doing more than flirting. You're transforming her internal state. And once you've shifted her emotionally, everything else becomes effortless. Her walls drop, her nervous system relaxes, and her feminine energy rises, not because you forced it, but because you held space for it. This is why the man who creates a new experience, something she hasn't felt in a while, maybe ever, is the man she chooses, even if it breaks all her own rules. Because people don't chase people, people chase feelings. And the man who knows how to offer a feeling of escape, of release, of depth, and fun and lightness, all in one presence, is the man she will say yes to. Not just because she's attracted, but because in that moment she wants to stay in that feeling. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to pretend. You need to be real, grounded, and emotionally intelligent enough to create a container that feels like a different world. A world where she doesn't have to be on edge. A world where she can let go of the roles, the scripts, the defenses, and just be a woman. Present and alive in the moment. And when you can offer that, you don't need to chase intimacy. It comes to you naturally. Because at the end of the day, she's not just choosing you. She's choosing the way you make her feel. Make her feel like she's escaping everything by being with you. And she'll follow that feeling without hesitation. That's not a strategy. That's emotional mastery. That's what makes you built different.